You've probably heard this advice before. Go gray rock. Stay emotionless, stay quiet, give them nothing. And maybe in the beginning, that advice felt like salvation, a way to protect yourself from the chaos, the drama, the emotional warfare. You told yourself, if I just don't react, they'll stop. And for a while, it worked. The noise quieted, the constant baiting slowed down. You felt, maybe for the first time, a little bit of peace. But here's the truth most people never talk about. Gray rocking might stop the noise, but if you do it long enough, it can also silence you. See, the danger isn't in the stillness. The danger is when the stillness becomes shutdown, when your peace becomes numbness, when your silence becomes suppression, when protecting yourself turns into disappearing from yourself. That's not healing, that's survival. And survival isn't where your story ends. You were not built to live like a rock. You were built to stand like a mountain, steady, grounded, alive. The gray rock method teaches you to retreat, to withdraw, to become unreadable. But there's a big difference between unreadable and unbreakable. One hides in fear, the other stands in truth. So let's talk about this myth, because the myth says, if I show nothing, they'll lose interest. But here's what actually happens. When you suppress emotion, you suppress power, you disconnect from the very intuition that tells you when something's wrong. You lose access to your inner compass, that voice that says, this isn't safe, this isn't right, I deserve better. Gray rocking was meant to protect your peace. But peace doesn't come from turning to stone. Peace comes from turning inward, from finding stillness without losing your soul. There's a moment in every person's healing when they realize something profound. It's not that you have to stop feeling. It's that you have to stop letting someone else control how you feel. That's the shift. That's the moment where you stop surviving the chaos and start mastering your calm. Because the truth is, you can be calm and still be powerful. You can be quiet and still command the room. You can be detached and still deeply alive. Gray rock tells you, don't react. I'm telling you, respond with awareness. That's not the same thing. The goal isn't to be cold. It's to be clear, to reclaim the energy you used to waste explaining, defending, and proving, to redirect it inward into strength, into self-respect, into your own peace. So if you've been gray rocking your way through life, holding your breath just to keep the peace, I want you to exhale right now. Let it go. You don't need to disappear to be safe. You don't need to become stoned to stop the storm. You just need to become still, because stillness isn't silence. Stillness is power. And that's where this journey begins, moving from gray rock to what I call calm authority. It's not about shutting down. It's about standing up in a new kind of strength that doesn't need to shout to be heard. Let's get honest about what happens when you take gray rock too far. At first, it feels like freedom, right? The silence, the space, the control. You're not reacting. You're not giving them fuel. You're finally untouchable. But over time, something shifts. You stop talking, not just to them, but to yourself. You stop sharing, stop expressing, stop feeling. You wake up one morning and realize that you didn't just cut them off emotionally, you cut yourself off too. You've become so good at not reacting that you forgot how to feel safe reacting at all. And listen, I say this with love. That's not peace. That's paralysis. See, here's the truth about your nervous system. When you live around manipulation or emotional abuse long enough, your body learns one thing, that stillness equals safety. You stop fighting, you stop running, you freeze, you shut down so you can survive. That's biology, not weakness. That's your system trying to protect you. But survival and healing are not the same thing. Survival is instinct. Healing is intention. And what happens to so many people is they get stuck right there in the freeze. They call it peace, but it's really exhaustion wearing a disguise. They call it detachment, but it's really numbness. They call it boundaries, but it's really fear. I've seen it again and again. People who think they've found freedom because they finally stopped reacting, but inside, they're still carrying the tension, the hypervigilance, the constant anticipation of the next hit. You can't heal if you're still waiting for the next blow. And that's what emotional shutdown does. It teaches you to brace yourself for a life that no longer requires bracing. Let me tell you about someone I worked with. I'll call her Anna. Anna spent years in a relationship where every conversation turned into chaos. She learned to survive by disappearing. She told me, Mel, I just stopped talking. It was easier that way. But when the relationship ended, the silence stayed. She didn't know how to speak up anymore. She'd go to work and hold her tongue, even when something wasn't right. She'd feel anger or sadness rise up and immediately swallow it down. And one day she realized the narcissist was gone, but the cage was still there. That's what emotional shutdown does. It keeps you locked in an invisible prison. You stop fighting the abuser, but you keep fighting yourself. And the real tragedy? You start mistaking self-erasure for strength. Let me tell you something. Silence born from fear is not strength. Calm born from awareness is. That's the difference between gray rock and growth. You don't heal by turning off your emotions. You heal by learning how to handle them. You heal by creating space between the feeling and the reaction space. Big enough for choice, space wide enough for peace. That's what I call emotional regulation. It's not about denying your feelings. It's about directing them. It's the bridge between survival and sovereignty. And that's where we're going next, because once you understand how to move from freezing to grounding, from shutdown to stability, everything changes. You stop mistaking quiet for peace. You stop mistaking numbness for healing. And you start realizing that real peace doesn't silence you, it centers you. There comes a point, and you'll know when it happens, when silence stops feeling like protection and starts feeling like suffocation. That's when it's time to shift. That's the moment when gray rock, the numb, unfeeling version of detachment, evolves into something deeper, something stronger. I call it calm authority. Calm authority isn't about hiding your emotions. It's about mastering them. It's the art of staying rooted in your peace while the storm still rages around you. Because here's the truth. The chaos doesn't always disappear when you do. Sometimes the noise keeps coming. The manipulation, the drama, the guilt, it all still shows up. But the difference now is you don't join it. That's calm authority. Let me break it down for you. Gray rock says, don't feel, don't react, don't exist too loudly. Calm authority says, feel everything, but don't let anyone else decide how you express it. Do you hear that shift? It's not about emptiness. It's about ownership. When you operate from calm authority, you don't disappear, you decide. You don't shrink to avoid conflict, you stand in clarity. You don't fight to prove your worth, you know it. I want you to imagine this for a second. You're in a conversation with someone who used to trigger you every single time. They raise their voice, twist your words, push your buttons, but this time, something is different. Your body doesn't react the same way. You don't feel your chest tighten. You don't feel that wave of panic or anger. You just breathe. You're calm, not because you don't care, but because you finally do. You care about your energy. You care about your peace. You care about how you show up. That's calm authority. And it's built on 3 foundations, 3 core truths that will change the way you handle manipulation, control, and emotional chaos. The first is emotional neutrality. That's the part you already know, staying centered when someone else is losing control. But neutrality doesn't mean apathy. It means presence without panic. You can observe what's happening without being swallowed by it. The second is grounded presence. This is where you stay in your body, connected to the moment, aware of your breath. When you stay grounded, you send your nervous system a clear message. I'm safe. I'm in control. And when you feel safe, you stop needing to defend yourself. And the third foundation, boundary energy. This isn't a wall. It's a frequency. It's the unspoken message that says, I respect you, but I won't abandon myself to keep you comfortable. You don't have to say it out loud. People feel it when you mean it. When you stand in calm authority, your energy becomes consistent. You're no longer reacting to their chaos. You're setting the emotional tone of the entire interaction. You've walked off their stage and started building your own. And that's powerful because when you shift from reacting to responding, you change the entire dynamic. They can yell, manipulate, guilt trip, accuse, and it just doesn't stick. You've become like water. You move, but you don't break. Let me say this as clearly as I can. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You don't have to argue to prove you're right. You don't have to explain yourself to be understood. Calm authority is strength without struggle. It's power without noise. You stop trying to win the argument because you've already won the moment you choose peace over panic. And from that stillness, you begin to see the truth that was hidden beneath the noise all along, that you were never powerless, you were just exhausted. Now you're learning to rest in your power instead of defending it. And that's the beginning of real healing. Not hiding, not freezing, not surviving, but leading yourself with calm. Because when you learn to lead yourself that way, everything and everyone around you starts to shift too. Let's start with the first foundation of calm authority, emotional regulation. Because this is where your real power begins. You've heard me say it before. You can't control how someone else acts, but you can always control how you respond. That sounds simple, right? But in the middle of chaos, it feels impossible. When you're dealing with someone manipulative, someone who twists your words, pokes at your insecurities, uses silence like a weapon, your nervous system doesn't wait for logic, it reacts. Your heart starts racing, your shoulders tense, your brain floods with adrenaline and fear and anger. And before you even realize it, you've been pulled into the very trap you swore you'd never fall into again. That's not because you're weak. It's because you're wired to react. That's where emotional regulation comes in. It's the practice of interrupting that automatic reaction, of reclaiming your control in the few seconds before the spiral begins. And that's where I bring in the 5-second rule. It's one of the simplest, most powerful tools I've ever taught, and it changes everything when you're dealing with someone toxic. Here's how it works. When you feel the trigger, the insult, the tone, the guilt trip, don't speak, don't move, don't defend. Instead, count backward in your mind. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What you're doing in that moment is activating the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that allows you to make a conscious choice instead of a survival one. You're interrupting the emotional hijack. When you hit 1, you take a slow breath. Inhale through your nose. Hold it. Exhale slowly through your mouth. That breath is your bridge. It carries you from the reactive self to the regulated self. And here's the truth. You can't be calm and reactive at the same time. One will always override the other. So when you count down, when you breathe, when you pause, you send a message to your entire nervous system. I'm safe now. I'm in control. And that one message changes everything. You'll feel it. The body relaxes. The heartbeat slows. Your mind clears. That's your power coming back online. Now, from that state, you can choose your next move. Maybe it's walking away. Maybe it's saying, I hear you, and this conversation isn't working for me right now. Maybe it's simply staying silent, but on purpose this time. That's not passive. That's power with precision. See, calm authority isn't about pretending you don't feel. It's about feeling everything, but owning the choice of what to do with it. Because emotional regulation isn't suppression, it's direction. Let me say that again. You're not shutting your emotions off. You're guiding them where they serve you best. And here's what happens when you do this consistently. The narcissist loses their map. They can't predict you anymore. They can't provoke you into old patterns. You've become unpredictable in the best possible way, stable. And stability, my friend, is the one thing manipulation can't survive. Because when you're calm, they lose control. When you're grounded, they lose influence. When you stop reacting, you stop being their source of power. That's why this first foundation, mastering emotional regulation, is non-negotiable. It's your armor and your compass. So the next time you feel the hook, the bait, the sting stop, count it out, breathe, and remind yourself, my calm is my power. My peace is my protection. Because that's exactly what it is, protection, the kind that doesn't require walls or distance or silence, just awareness. And when you master that awareness, you stop surviving the moment and start leading it. Now that you've learned how to regulate your emotions, it's time to step into the second foundation of calm authority, verbal and nonverbal command. Let's be honest, you can do all the inner work in the world, but if your tone, your body, and your words don't match your power, people will still test you. Boundaries don't live in what you say, they live in how you say it. And here's the secret. Most communication is energy, not language. It's not the sentence that gets heard. It's the state behind the sentence. You can say, please stop talking to me that way and sound terrified. Or you can say, please stop talking to me that way and sound immovable. Same words, different energy. That's why calm authority is not just emotional regulation. It's embodied presence. When you walk into a conversation with a narcissist, a manipulative coworker, a controlling partner, anyone who thrives on reaction, your posture speaks before your mouth does. Your eyes tell the story before your words ever land. So before you say a thing, I want you to ground, roll your shoulders back, feel your feet on the floor, take one slow breath. You're not tensing up, you're rooting down. And when you do speak, speak slowly, speak simply. The fastest way to lose authority is to explain yourself. You don't need a monologue, you need a line. Here are a few that I use and teach. That's not going to work for me. I'm not discussing this right now. I understand you feel that way. My answer is still no. We'll talk when you're calm. Every one of those sentences does something critical. It stops the emotional ping pong game. It ends the debate before it begins. Because remember this, manipulators don't want understanding, they want engagement. And when you give them endless explanations, you give them endless access. So stop explaining, stop defending. Start deciding there's a huge difference between silence that comes from fear and silence that comes from strength. Fearful silence shrinks. Powerful silence commands. When you stand there, calm, grounded, present, you send a clear message without saying a word. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not your opponent. I'm simply done participating in this energy. And that's when something remarkable happens. They start to fidget. They lose their rhythm. They start to fill the space you used to fill for them because your calm exposes their chaos. I've seen this over and over again. A person who once trembled in conflict suddenly stands still, breathing, rooted, calm. The manipulator's voice rises, trying to provoke, trying to find the button that used to work, and nothing lands. The chaos ricochets back onto itself. That's not arrogance. That's mastery. That's what happens when your energy becomes unshakable, because you're no longer fighting for control. You are control. And when you reach that place, your words become minimal, but their impact becomes massive. You can say one sentence and shift the entire atmosphere in the room. Why? Because your energy now communicates one clear message. I mean what I say, and I'm done repeating it. So as you practice this, whether it's at home, at work, or in your relationships, remember this principle. You don't explain calm. You embody it. You don't perform peace. You practice it. Calm authority doesn't shout. It doesn't prove. It doesn't chase. It simply is. And when you reach that point, the game is over because you've stopped playing it. That's verbal and nonverbal command. The invisible armor that comes from being deeply aligned with yourself. Let's move into the third foundation of calm authority, the boundaries loop. Because here's the truth, emotional regulation and calm communication are powerful, but without consistent boundaries, they'll leak. You can breathe, you can stay calm, you can speak firmly, but if you don't reinforce the line, the chaos always finds a crack. So let's get this straight. A boundary is not a wall. It's not a punishment. It's not a weapon. A boundary is a line of self-respect. It's the invisible sentence that says, I get to decide what energy enters my life. And the boundaries loop, this is how you keep that line strong, steady, and alive. It's a 3-step process. Set, hold, withdraw. Let's walk through each one. 1. Set. Setting a boundary is about clarity, not emotion. Most people set boundaries through anger or exhaustion. They wait until they've been pushed to their limit and then explode. I can't take this anymore. But that's not a boundary. That's a breakdown. A true boundary is calm, simple, and direct. You say it once, with conviction, and no performance. Please don't raise your voice at me. I'm not available to discuss this right now. If you keep insulting me, I'll leave the conversation. Notice new apology, new justification, new sermon. You don't explain your boundaries, you state them. 2. Hold. This is where most people struggle, the holding, because the moment you set a boundary, the testing begins. They'll push, they'll guilt trip, they'll tell you you're selfish, dramatic, unforgiving. But remember, the pushback isn't proof that your boundary failed. It's proof that it's working. It means they feel the loss of control. And that's where calm authority matters most. You don't argue. You don't defend. You hold steady. When they say, you've changed, you say, yes, I have. When they say, you're overreacting, you say, this feels right for me. When they say, I guess you don't care anymore, you say, I care about my peace. That's holding. That's choosing your peace over their approval. 3, withdraw. Now, here's the hardest part. When they keep crossing that line, you don't keep restating it. You act. You withdraw your energy, your time, your access, because every time you keep explaining your boundaries, you're teaching them that your no is negotiable. Withdrawal isn't cruelty. It's consequence. It's you saying, this conversation, this dynamic, this disrespect, it no longer gets to use my energy as fuel. You remove access to your reaction, and that's when control shifts back to you. That's the boundaries loop. Set, hold, withdraw. You don't need to do it perfectly. You just need to do it consistently, because consistency is what rewires your nervous system. Every time you set and hold a boundary, your body learns a new truth. I can protect myself without panic. I can stay calm and still be powerful. And when that lesson finally lands, everything in your world starts to change. People either rise to meet your energy or they fall away. And either way, your peace stays intact. Let me say this clearly. Your boundaries are not a rejection of others. They are a declaration of yourself. This is who I am. This is what I allow. This is how I live. And that clarity, that unapologetic ownership is magnetic. It draws in the right people and dissolves the wrong ones. Because when your boundaries become non-negotiable, your peace becomes unshakable. That's the power of the boundaries loop. It teaches the world how to treat you by how you treat yourself. By now, you've learned to regulate your emotions, to speak with authority, and to protect your peace through boundaries. But there's one more shift, one that takes everything we've talked about and roots it deep inside you. It's the inner work, the quiet work, the work no one sees. It's learning that detachment isn't coldness. It's maturity. It's the moment you finally stop trying to manage someone else's dysfunction and start mastering your own peace. For so long, you believed love meant fixing. You believed compassion meant endless patience. You believed that if you just said the right thing, gave enough, explained hard enough, they'd finally see your heart. But what you were really doing was trying to earn safety from people who had no intention of offering it. And that's why detachment feels radical, because it breaks a lifelong habit of overgiving, over-explaining, over-proving. Detachment isn't you saying, I don't care. It's you saying, I care deeply, just not at the expense of myself. Let's redefine it right now. Detachment means you stop giving other people permission to pull the strings of your emotions. It means you stop letting guilt or fear dictate your next move. It means you finally sit in your own calm and realize, I am enough, even when they don't approve. And this is where the real transformation begins, inside, not outside. Because when you detach emotionally, you don't lose empathy, you gain clarity. You see things for what they are, not what you wish they could be. You stop chasing potential and you start honoring reality. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop chasing, you actually become more compassionate. You stop trying to fix people and you start understanding them. You stop trying to win love and you start recognizing which love is worth keeping. That's emotional maturity. It's not about shutting your heart. It's about opening it with discernment. It's about loving without losing yourself. It's about knowing that your peace isn't something you have to fight for. It's something you protect. I want you to try something small tomorrow morning. When you wake up and look in the mirror, before you pick up your phone, before you check your messages, I want you to lift your hand and give yourself a high five. Yes, really, because that simple gesture, that 1 second reminds your nervous system of the truth. You're on your side now. That's the high five habit. It's not about ego. It's about affirmation. It's you saying, I've got you. And that's what emotional maturity really is. It's the relationship you build with yourself once you stop trying to get validation from people who thrive on withholding it. When you do this inner work, when you honor your calm, keep your boundaries, regulate your emotions, and choose your peace, you become the person they can't control. Not because you're defiant, but because you're free. Freedom isn't rebellion. It's alignment. It's living in truth so deeply that manipulation no longer fits inside your energy field. And that's what happens when detachment becomes maturity. You evolve beyond the game. You no longer need to win. You no longer need to explain. You simply live in peace that no one can touch, because the moment you realize your calm isn't emptiness, it's wisdom, you become untouchable in the best way possible. That's the inner work. That's what healing looks like in motion. You've done the hardest part. You've unlearned the chaos. You've reconnected to your calm. You've remembered your worth. Now it's time to bring that peace into the real world, because this isn't theory. This is how you live now. Every conversation, every room, every relationship you carry, your calm authority with you like invisible armor. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to explain it. It shows. You walk differently. You listen differently. You breathe differently. Because when you've mastered calm, you stop being dragged by life and start leading it. You see, calm authority isn't just a method for handling toxic people. It's a way of living. It's the way you talk to your kids, not shouting, but leading with steadiness. It's the way you navigate conflict at work. No defensiveness, just grounded clarity. It's the way you speak to yourself. No more tearing yourself apart for not getting it perfect. You don't need perfect. You need peace. And you've learned by now, peace doesn't mean everything is quiet. Peace means you're steady in the noise. I want you to remember something as you walk back into your life after this. The world rewards noise, but peace will always reward you. You don't need to fight to be respected. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to shrink to be safe. You've learned how to regulate your emotions. That's your anchor. You've learned how to speak with authority. That's your voice. You've learned how to hold boundaries. That's your structure. You've learned how to detach with maturity. That's your freedom. Now watch what happens when you combine them all. People will feel it. They won't know what changed, but they'll know something did. Because you no longer match the chaos around you. You neutralize it. That's calm authority in real life. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's subtle. It's quiet, but it's magnetic. You'll notice the people who used to control you start stumbling over their words. You'll notice you don't get pulled into fights you used to lose sleep over. You'll notice silence doesn't scare you anymore because you've learned the difference between being ignored and being at peace. Let me tell you something. The moment you stop explaining yourself is the moment your energy starts speaking for you. When you show up calm, grounded, clear, you teach people how to treat you without ever saying a word. That's real power. That's leadership. That's growth. And the truth is, calm authority isn't something you practice once. It's a lifestyle. It's how you move through heartbreak, disagreement, disappointment, success, all of it. Because calm doesn't mean you don't feel, it means you don't fall. You can stand in your truth without shaking. You can love without losing yourself. You can let go without bitterness. You can walk away quietly, peacefully, and still know that you won. Because winning isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you've changed. And that change, it doesn't need validation. It doesn't need applause. It just needs to be lived. So from this day forward, I want you to remember this mantra. My calm is my power. My peace is my protection. My boundaries are my freedom. That's the core of calm authority. That's how you live free. That's how you rise above everything that used to own you. You don't need to be a rock anymore. You don't need to disappear. You just need to stand still, grounded, aware, and let your calm speak louder than their chaos. Because the calm you build is the storm they can't enter. And that is where your peace begins.